All right, welcome back to Extraordinary Unlocked. Very excited to have my next guest here, Michelle McGregor. I had the privilege. I had the privilege of working with Michelle and just seeing her gifts at work. An incredible facilitator, en- engaging, also really great at project management and getting all the details lined up, ready to execute. And she has an extraordinary career story. She went from banking into organizational development work, into coaching, into so many other things. And it's really interesting to see this career over time. And so I'm excited that Michelle has been willing to come on the show, talk about it. And the first question I always kick off with, Michelle, before you introduce yourself, what was the first job you ever had?
Oh man, gotta scrape some cobwebs. The first job was working at a yogurt shop in the
Oh,
downtown area of where I lived.
okay. So you did froyo. Did you have to
Oh,
do the
spinning
swirl?
some froyo. So
That's
now with the
awesome.
self-serve yogurt places that exist today, I'm like, oh, I got this. I
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of.
Oh, people must be so impressed, like, "You got a good swirl job." That's awesome. So, tell us about your career journey and how you got to where you're at. Would love to hear just sort of how it progressed. Where did it all begin?
Yeah. So when I graduated college, I first started out my career at Wells Fargo and in the commercial space. And actually, what was really cool about that at the time, I was underwriting credit and doing some relationship management in the commercial space in Palo Alto during the dot-com era. So I
Oh
was
my
underwriting
goodness.
Yahoo, Snapfish, Shutterfly, underwriting all the names that are familiar to us and kind of, household names now, out of that Palo Alto office. So that was pretty cool to be a part of that
Yes.
at that time. Everything was cash secured, because that's all anyone had was cash. Um, so I did that for a while, and then through my time at Wells Fargo, evolved into more of a strategic change kind of project manager where I was
Mm,
implementing big programs, big project changes that were ways that we evolved the business model, roles, how we kind of tackled the market. And it was during that role that I realized like I had a love for leading, especially working with leaders and implementing
yes.
change, and then also getting to dabble in a lot of like the training aspects of and facilitation aspects, whether it be meetings with our learning sessions, meetings with teams, etc. Just really like I loved a lot of that side of it. And so at that time, I wound up going for my master's,
Mm.
and that was at Pepperdine. And I did a master's in organizational development. And what inspired me to do that was I tell this story like in my undergrad years, I was reading the psychology books before the classes, and I didn't do that for any other class. So I knew psychology was my jam. I knew
Okay.
business was my jam, and this master's program married the two. So I'm like, okay, perfect. Um, Anyway, so I was kind of hitting a bit of a wall at Wells trying to get into the OD space. So that's when I
Okay.
jumped ship and wound up going into the med device space on an OD team specifically in that discipline and really got to
Wow.
dive into it and
Yeah.
work in that domain for a while. And again, really loved the org design, team effectiveness space where I was going in and working with leaders and their teams, whether it be, restructuring, whether it be implementing a new strategy, all over the board in terms of the
Yeah.
the change management that I was in charge of in that particular role and at that time. And, just kind of found my sweet spot and then pivoted into, starting my own business. Gosh, it's been 14 years. I
Oh
had to do
my
the math
gosh,
the other day.
congratulations. 14 years. That's amazing.
I know, and I kept thinking, like, every year, I'm like, "Oh, this isn't gonna last, like, this'll change, like, I'll go back in," and my husband kept telling me, he's like, "At what point are you just gonna acknowledge that this is working?" I'm like, "It's fair, like, it's been enough time." Um, so here I am 14 years later where I've been now in more of a contract position, which has afforded me, you know, the opportunity to do the work that I love most. And I've
Yes.
since in that contract journey, I added coaching to my repertoire, which that's kind of part of my story in terms of an unlock, which
Yeah.
I've really loved. And then, which would, and I've been able to do all the work that I love and be relatively present for my kids and not be sort of burning the
Amazing.
80-hour a week type of, you know, structure I had when I was younger before kids. So it's
Absolutely.
been great.
Yeah. So, Michelle, that's absolutely amazing. And I'm going to rewind the tape because when I heard you say I was underwriting Yahoo, I really grew into the Wells Fargo business, into a very strategic leader. And then I got my master's in organizational development leadership. Now that seems like a big jump. Let's just, at least from my perspective, that's a big jump. And so, and you even reflected on in college reading psychology books. Oh my gosh, I love this stuff. But when you're in the banking world and you're doing banking stuff, which can I just be honest, can be a bit
Yeah.
heartless because you're just talking about
Got a lot
numbers.
of passion in there. Yep.
How in the world did you say, I I need to do that. Like, what was the
Yeah.
tension, friction, what we call stuckness that you were feeling and like, "Oh, this
Yeah.
can't continue like this."
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. Um, and it's actually quite a loaded one. So I'm going to try to be really pithy in my response.
Okay.
I would say very succinctly that what I learned in my banking career, although I was good at it and was able to do pretty well, I was not in love with it. And that
Mm,
became really clear to me. And I was trying to make the leap internally from being kind of on the front line doing these strategic projects and having, been in the sales world for so long to the HR world, which is where this type of work exists. And again, I was just hitting walls and I wasn't able
mm,
to make the move from a career experiential, like just jump over type of approach. And so long story short, I don't even remember. Somehow I found out about Pepperdine,
yeah,
and when I learned that there was a master's program that did the kind of work of where you're basically a business psychologist, I was just like, it was like a heck yes moment. I was like, oh my God, I don't even care. Like, I need to do this program regardless of the walls that I'm hitting here at Wells Fargo. And so that program was I was so drawn to it and what it
mm,
was all about and what it entailed because it was so much of how I identified in terms of my own strengths and gifts. And so that was a heck yes. And once I did that program, like that was the impetus to be like, okay, I can't keep doing this work anymore that
yeah,
I know that is not it's not my work to do. Like, I need to get out of the way of someone who is totally wired and would be really excited and thrilled to do this work. And I need to go now start doing the work that I know I was put here to do.
yeah.
So that's how it
No,
happened.
and that's really helpful, and I wanna ask about the red flags. What were the red flags you're like, "I'm good at this. I'm making good money doing it, and I hate
Yeah.
it." Like, what were the red flags you're like, "Ooh,
Yeah. I think just energy, right? Like
yeah,
just waning energy on getting out of bed every day to do the job, like just not feeling that pull. Uh,
yeah,
again, enough because I feel I was good at it, and I'm a worker bee. Like I'm somebody who's going to
yes,
get in there and work hard no matter what it is. But I just really like I couldn't keep going, acknowledging that my energy was
yeah."
just dissipating over time. And when I found out about this master's program, I mean, my energy dial was just cranking, right? I mean, like to move towards that was so appealing to me. I thought, okay, I got to figure this out.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing that you just said when you found out about it, you're like, "Yes, I'm gonna go do this thing." There's no it doesn't sound like there's any fear or a need to really build up some courage to go do it. It's like, I'm signing up." Does
It
that sound
really was.
accurate? Okay, and that's powerful just because it sounds like there's so much resonating, like, the energy shift was a big move, and that in itself sounds like a big so now you move from banking into a different organization and you're
Mhm.
actually doing the work. And tell me more when you first dove into it. You had mentioned, "I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it." Like, tell me more about that.
Oh yeah. Well, when I first dove into it, I was very scared. Like I'll be transparent, right? I was like, I'm gonna it's the fake it till you make it. Like, okay, yeah, I've
Yeah,
got this education and I have this background, but like, how do I do this in the real world, right? And so there was definitely some of that. I guess I've heard people call it like the imposter syndrome, right? Like,
right.
okay, I have this role now and I'm supposed to do this. And so um and over time, one project at a time, right, as I started to I just started to find a sweet spot for myself of, wow,
Mm,
like, being able to implement big programs and being able to do them really, really well and be able to really see the impact on the organization and know that my strengths allowed me to be able to breed the success through all the collaboration and all the partnerships and all the people that I needed to be in
yeah,
it with me. um, like, it was pretty energizing to be able to
yeah,
have an impact at that level because OD, and org effectiveness is really often at an org level, and I was working in a Fortune 500 company, so, you get to see the impact and you're like, "Oh, wow, that was pretty cool," and I did this with a lot of people internationally with, like, a lot of stakeholders, and so that
that's
started to
powerful.
fuel some energy.
Yeah, I mean, you're moving completely different industries, completely different work, and recognizing the impact of it. And it
Mhm,
sounds like, oh my gosh, I'm in the right space. It's towards the calling, aligned with your strengths. That you weren't having to muster up energy and like, oh, I gotta go do this thing as a grind, but more of this is my natural strength and my energy is flowing in this direction, and I'm able to go do it, execute, and see the incredible results
mhm,
come about, which is powerful. And so you are doing this, and now there's this next chapter of 14 years of your own business. But that in itself, I would say the folks that I've talked to as entrepreneurs, self-employed, starting their own business, that level of fear is always a concern. What is life going to be like where I don't know when that next steady paycheck will come in? Tell us
mhm.
about how you made the jump.
Well, for starters, I have my husband to thank because my husband's a fireman. And so, what that means is while we don't get paid a whole lot, we do have fantastic benefits. And so, I had the fortune of having a partner who covered benefits. So, that gave
Mm,
me a lot of freedom that I had never had before as a single woman to go out on my own, or at least the risk was less, right? Because I
right.
knew that part was I didn't have to worry about that, and so still really wanted to work for the organization and still really loved some of the work that I was assigned to. So,
Yeah.
I finessed an opportunity to contract instead of be employed, and I did it on a kind of more part-time basis at the time, um, and was able to do it was actually one of my favorite and most uh, awesome projects I've done with a good buddy, my buddy Dave. We launched a
Yeah.
corporate university at this organization, which I
Oh,
still have a
wow.
lot of pride around. It still exists today. And
Amazing.
so that was my bridge project of where I rolled off of the OD team and then worked on more of a big project by big project basis for actually quite a while. So it was sort of an easy transition. Um,
Oh,
I just changed leaders and they let me contract.
Michelle, that I mean, just as you're telling the story, it almost seems like this is smooth glide path. Like all the rails are there, and you're just following where the rails are leading you, which I will say is not traditional.
Well,
Oftentimes there's a cliff, and we don't know how am I going to get to the other
totally.
side, and you have to build the bridge. But I love that you said I finessed a deal so that I'm still at the same company and getting contract work, and knowing all the players on the team, the leaders, that they're
Exactly.
familiar with you. Amazing.
Exactly, and I will say, I'll out myself and say, I mean, Eugen, you know me, like, I'm a very structured soul. I'm a very safety, security, like, the edge of
Yes.
the cliff scares the you know what. Like, the edge of the cliff is never a place that I wanna go. I try everything in my power to not go there, which is why I stayed in my career for as long as I did doing work I didn't like because of that safety, security grip that I carry
Yeah.
around, and so, um, being able to make the jump in that
Mm.
way was huge for me because I don't know that I would have been able to do it. I would have the I don't know I would have the courage to do it
Wow.
without having that sort of bridge to just glide over.
Yeah. Amazing. And kudos to your husband helping you out.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you to
That's
him.
the
I tell him all the time, I'm grateful to him to this day that he has our benefits because that's how I've been able to stay in business on my own
yeah.
for this long.
Yeah, that's powerful. And as you move into the self-employed world and doing your own thing, and now you get to dictate your time. I
Mhm.
mean, what was the feeling? What was the tell me about it. Like, what was it like experiencing that you don't have to wake up, clock in and do your thing, but it's more like, well, I get to choose what I want to do.
Well, I wish it were that lovely. What I will say is that there's still when you're working in corporate America, even as a contractor, I did, is still adhere to a lot of the corporate norms, right? Like you're still waking up, and I was doing international work. So I was waking
Oh,
up sometimes at 5, 6 in the morning, sometimes working till 7, 8 at night because working with China, working with Europe, and so forth.
yeah.
And so, it wasn't all like, "Oh, sweet, I'll start at 10 today and end at 2," you know? There was still quite a bit of structure, just because the folks that I'm working so closely
Yeah.
with have that. The upside, what I will say, is that I did have a little more discernment on the projects I would say yes to and who was
Mm,
involved in those projects. And so that freedom, and the word that when you were asking me, the word that comes up for me is freedom. Like there was
yeah.
just more freedom, right? I felt like, and forgive me for saying this for my corporate America buddies, like I was selling my soul to corporate America being on the inside. And you're like, oh my gosh, you grind it out, you do all this work, you work so many extra hours, and for what? You know,
Mm,
as opposed to, for me, the way I orient to the world, being paid for the hours that I was working. Because one of my competitive advantages is I don't just charge you a 40-hour a week rate. I only charge for the hours that I truly work. So
yeah.
my clients have often said, hire her because she's basically a twofer. She's like having two employees in one, even though she's part time, because she's only billing for what she works, right? So there's this upside to doing business with me in that sense. And so anyway, that's a little
I
bit of
love
the
that. I love that. Thank you. And I love that word freedom because there are definitely people that are listening to this podcast seeking that kind of freedom. Some people are maybe wanting to stay in corporate America, look for that next role, go up the ladder, which, hey, I respect that. I understand
totally.
completely.
Yep.
And there are definitely people that are like, I needed to go blaze a trail of my own
Mhm.
because I knew what I was really good at. I'm focused on being able to deliver for myself and deliver for clients and organizations. And it sounds like that word freedom, it captures it perfectly.
It does, and I wanna just name something quickly here that really struck me is not too long ago, I did a guest lecture in a women's leadership course at a
Mm,
university close by here, and I said to the women was in as part of my the work that I was doing with them, I said, "Look, I want to pulse all of you." I said, "How many of you would think that it's possible to work 20 hours a week, make six figures, and essentially like manage your own schedule and pick your own projects?" And not one of them raised their hands. These are all women that are getting ready to graduate. I was like, "You're all wrong.
wow.
Every one of you is wrong. It is possible." And so it was a big eye-opening opportunity for me to create a shift in that room and help every one of those women see that whether they wanted, to your point, climb the corporate ladder, great, go that route. Like there's obviously nothing wrong with that. And if you want something different, you have to imagine it and create it, and you can have it. Because
Wow.
this opportunity that I created for myself came from me being really clear on what I wanted, writing it down. I mean, putting words to paper and being like, what's my hell yes? Like, okay, it's this, it's this, this. And lo and behold, whenever I've done that, which is why thank you, source, and thank you, energy in the world, like it manifests and I get it because I'm clear on what I want.
Yeah. That I think you just spoke to so many people, especially that demographic of women that feels like I have to make a choice. Either
Yep.
I do the corporate America thing and just go nonstop and do my own thing, or um, I don't do anything at all and I stay at home. And there's nothing wrong with that if you make that choice, not
Nothing
at
wrong
all.
with any of it.
But you were able to get the best of both worlds. And that's such a
Right.
word of encouragement. But because you were so clear on what you wanted, and you weren't just the wishing type or the hope type. I hope someone just shows up at my door and
Exactly.
just gives me the bags of money and like, well,
Yep.
here you go. That's what you wanted, but you knew what you wanted, you knew what you could do, and you delivered for
And that
yourself
was
and your
courageous to ask for it. Right, and then because once you put pen to paper and you think like, "Gosh, that's what I want," then it's the courage to ask for it, and then when you hear yes, it's like, "Oh, they just said yes." And you're like, you're like, "Okay."
Yeah. I love that. You're coming in so confident. This is gonna be a yes. This is gonna be a yes. I know it's gonna close a deal. Oh my gosh, they actually said yes. I
I'm
can't
like,
believe.
"Wow," which is why I told those women, I'm like, "You better march out of here and know that you can create what you want, and I am depending on you to do that for my kids."
Mm, I love that. That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that, and I really hope that connected with somebody as they're listening. And
Mhm.
you added things. You didn't just go into business and like, hey, I'm gonna stay the same and do the same thing, but you really developed yourself into this very premier consultant, leadership development, team effectiveness, org effectiveness, and implementing Gestalt, incorporating Gestalt into all of your practices. So tell the audience, what is Gestalt? How did you go about doing that? And how is that different than someone that doesn't do it?
Yeah, wow. Okay, so what is Gestalt? Gestalt essentially is there. It's a couple things. One, the Gestalt orientation, and I'm going to use the coaching lens just for the listeners' context because I that's where I studied. Gestalt is in the coaching domain. Is a way of being with a client that is very holistic. And what I mean by that is that as a trained Gestaltist, I am what I essentially identify as an embodied coach, an embodiment coach. And what that means is that when I am coming into contact with a client, that I am taking in all of the data that is present. And what I mean by all the data is it's not just the words, it's how you're saying the words, how your tone may change with different words, how your gestures are congruent or incongruent with your words, how your shape is showing up. So there's a lot of physical data and movement that I'm taking in with those nonverbals, right? The 80% of
Yes.
communication is nonverbals. And I am coming into the field with the client, really taking all of them in. And in order to do that, often I am slowing clients down. So from a Gestalt stance, we go slow to go fast. So it's really slowing down to be in the moment, in what we call the here and now with a client to really be able to pay attention and notice what is emerging.
Mhm.
And while saying that out loud might sound like, oh, okay, doing it,
Yeah.
whole nother deal. Because as humans, the way I describe this is we often are in thinking in the past or we're thinking in the future. Rarely are we truly with ourselves in the here and now because we don't have time to be there. We're like, we have
Right.
time. We just need to go to the past and we need to go to the future. What's coming next? What are we doing? Right. And we do that very cognitively. Uh, and so what happens is that because of that habit and that practice, we miss a lot of what's happening in our bodies and what's happening in the present moment. That is data that goes unrecognized and can actually be what's in the way of us getting what we want.
Hmm.
So the Gestalt practice is an opportunity when we come into contact with a client to help the client see all of who they already are so that they can actually use that data to drive whatever change it is that they're wanting. So it's
Wow.
not just a cognitive way of being. So that's the first thing. The second thing is an experiential stance. And what I mean by that is that instead of just talking about the change, talking about, okay, I'm this way right now, and I'll use myself as a quick example. In my adult life, I quickly learned that I sucked at conflict. I sucked at staying in it. I sucked at being able to engage with it. And my response was I would flee, right?
Hmm.
And I knew that this wasn't a desirable response. And so what I wanted was to be able to like stay in conflict and actually like teach myself to be able to do that. And mind you, as an aside, I could teach difficult conversations and conflict just like you, right? We could teach it all
Yeah.
day long. You know what you're
Teach it all day
supposed
long.
to do, right?
Yeah.
But the Gestalt stance being experiential was rather than talking about how I wanted to do conflict and how I wanted to move from here to here, I had to experience it and try it on. And so what that would
Right.
look like is having my coach come at me, right, with a more we'll call it an assertive stance, which typically is what would make me want to flee. And in the moment, me having to come into contact with that and learning about what that assertive orientation of somebody
Hmm.
does to me from an embodied stance, right? What does that bring up in me? And how does that keep getting in my way of being able to stay engaged? So Gestalt is about I'm experimenting with what it is that I want, learning, collecting all of this data. And oh, by the way, all of that data then becomes an accelerator because now I have way more to work with,
Hmm.
use it to get what I want. I'm like, oh, there's this knot in my throat. Oh my gosh, my shape gets really small. Oh, my head even looks out. I actually constrict my breathing when the assertiveness comes my way.
Wow.
So the experiments uncovered, like, okay, keep this tall, keep the shoulders out, right? And so I had all of these ways of intervening with myself physically that today I will proudly say I'm a totally different person when it comes to holding a different stance, a different point of view, a different
Wow.
perspective. I can do that way more in a way more solid, centered way than was ever possible 10 years ago.
Michelle, what you just described is completely mind blowing, first of all. And second of all, it is the unlocking of extraordinary because most people in conflict, you and I have facilitated that course probably 1,000 times.
Thousand
And 99.9% of people have zero desire to engage in conflict. Nobody wakes up and says,
Right.
I want to fight.
Yep,
I wanna
exactly.
have a problem with you. I wish someone would mess with me. I wish someone would. Nobody almost nobody says that. And the one person that I remember would say that, yeah, nobody likes actually talking to you either.
Exactly. Exactly. We're like, "No."
Yes. And so you unlocked extraordinary in yourself, and even as you were sharing that, talk about being holistic, just the confidence and the different way your countenance even, because when you were talking about, oh my gosh, I sort of ball up and want to go to a mini fetal position while standing, but now just being able to, all right, let's talk about this, let's
Mhm,
have the difficult conversation. And I want to ask that once you unlock that through Gestalt,
mhm.
I mean, what was the epiphany? What was the feeling like even as you're talking about it now?
So it almost I feel this like emotional wave come over me as I hear you say that because the unlock for me was that embodiment matters.
Hmm.
And which is why once I learned that as a adult woman, I could fundamentally change a way of orienting myself to the world that had huge upsides for me especially because now I'm modeling for my two daughters,
Right.
right? How to take a stand, how to how to toe the line, right? How to stay in it. That mattered to me. And so now that I have this agency to be able to stay in conflict, the embodiment piece is the unlock. And I was like, you know what? That did it for me, and I want to pay this forward. It was at that
Yeah.
moment that I knew that what I had done for myself, I wanted to bring to other people, and it just gives me chills
Ah,
even talking about it. And so I have an internal commitment and external really, and you've seen me in practice and you've seen me in our design sessions. Like I'm going to look for multiple opportunities to integrate embodiment because guess what? No matter what AI does in today's world, we
yep.
are humans. And
Yes.
we numb so much because of the speed through which we operate that we are just not paying attention.
Mhm.
And my unlock and service of others is that you come sit with me and you're going to learn way more about what's actually happening for you than you did before you came and sat with me. And you're
Amazing.
gonna be able to use that to get more of what you want.
That is a superpower. And we talk about extraordinary unlocked where in our career journey or in our journey in life, we've found these unlocks. So we're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was there. But this is the nuance that you just shared. It has become a superpower of enabling others to get unlocked of things that they actually really wanted, but just thought, how could I do that? And
Exactly.
how could I do that? How I'm looking
Not
at the
possible.
past. I'm looking at the future, what I really
Yep.
want, what is not attainable, so I'm stuck. I'm
Mhm.
absolutely stuck, and I would love to just ask about a client, any client, you don't have to name them, obviously, but when you saw the unlock and what it
Oh,
did
yeah.
for somebody, tell me about it.
Oh, god.
This is the reason why I'm doing this podcast, to share
Yep.
about.
I have a huge list of lots of examples that are it's a beyond privilege to even have that list. One example that comes to mind, though, is I was actually working with an executive in the banking industry, and this was during COVID, and he was having some challenges with his confidence, his contact style with his boss. Like his confidence would crumble when it's like his boss would be coming down the hall and he could just feel his body, right, like
Mm,
crumble. And so, to make a long story short, through some embodiment practices, what he learned was that the lack of confidence was showing up in his legs. And what he noticed through experimenting with him is that his legs would just get really weak, right? And they'd start to feel limp when he was in contact with his boss.
hmm.
And so we worked on some practices, right, to pay more attention to that, on and on and on, to strengthen and get him to center through his legs. And so he had a practice that he developed where, again, like he would work on every time he'd go to stand, right? Every time that he would, go get some water, take a break, he would just pay attention to his legs and really
Yeah.
feel his legs underneath him, holding him up. Well, that led to him introducing an opportunity to his team to do wall sits every morning. So the practice this evolved into, believe it or not, was he'd go in the office and he would do a wall sit, right? Where you're like leaning against the wall, like
Yeah.
holding a seated position, right? And they would he would tell me, he's like, yeah, and we do like they'd have like a little rhythm that they do with their hands. And he invited his team to do this. And the reason he was doing it is because at the beginning of the day, he wanted to get in contact with his legs
Wow.
and strengthen his legs underneath him. And he would tell me, he had actually sent me emails. He would keep in contact months after our sessions. And he'd say his whole team, that became a practice where at the beginning of the day, 2 minutes, not long, and they all do a wall sit together. And then they go about and start their day.
That is incredible because it overflowed into the team,
Mhm.
and I'm just trying to imagine the team like, "You wanna do what? You're an
Yep.
executive, you do a 2-minute wall sit? You're strange, but it looks like my team members are doing it, so I better go too."
And this is why, like, it's like with and the embodiment work, you never know what's going to happen. You never know where people hold it. You never know what opportunities this could uncover. And here we are, humans, all doing a wall sit together. We're all doing it at the same time, in the same place, and doing it together, like creating this shared experience, right?
Yes.
So there's a ripple effect to that.
And that's powerful. That is the definition of unlocking extraordinary. And I want to ask what happened after doing that with his team, with himself, being aware of his legs. What was his encounters with his boss like after that?
I mean, through, this isn't verbatim, right? But what he would report out is just able to stay in it, like able to actually access his thinking brain. Because what was happening for him is he would like freeze up and he wouldn't
Yeah.
get out the right words, right? He'd get fuzzy, like he wouldn't be very articulate with his boss when he was in contact with him. Shifted to being centered. When you're centered, it's impossible for anxiety to be present. So he was able to actually take a stand, where he needed to. Now, mind you, we're talking the dial turned a couple clicks. I'm not here to pretend like we're doing these big 180s, right? But
Right.
over time, he was clicking the dial to be able to actually stay centered when he knew his boss was coming down the hall to meet with him for a one-on-one or was going to be coming to check in on something, as opposed to getting that hijacking feeling, being able to stay centered and being able to be articulate and not feel so stuck in his throat.
That's amazing. There's so many people that wanna work with you now that they've heard that. And
It's
so we'll make sure
bananas.
information in the area, of the podcast where they can contact you and reach you, but that is just so powerful, and so as you think to yourself, because we really want people that are listening that feel that stuckness way
Mm,
back in your banking days. Like, just as we're here talking
yeah.
about where you're at today, it feels like 3 lifetimes ago that you were in banking,
Mhm.
and thinking back to that person of just like they're really good at their job and they're actually able to execute, but they know when they wake up, it is a battle
Right,
getting out of bed because it's just not what they want to do, but it's what they are good at and get paid really well to do.
right.
Piece of advice would you tell that person?
Oh my gosh. The word that comes up is congruence. Look for
Mm,
where there's congruence and incongruence, and that incongruence is living inside of you. It's there, and it's not unusual for us to just be, like, stuffing it down and numbing it, right? Let yourself feel where there's that incongruence, befriend it, get to know it. That's where there's an opportunity for unlock. And by incongruence, I mean similar to
yes.
what you just said, right? It's where I'm waking up and I'm like, I'm just, ugh, right? Or I'm going into this meeting and I'm like, ugh, as opposed to like, I can do this. Like, I got this. And so I'm able to move into something with more agency and with
Yeah.
more want instead of a have to, must, like hate. Ugh.
And I think
Very
calling
elaborate,
them
I know.
I'm glad you defined incongruence because when I think of congruence, I always think of geometry and shapes, like, okay, are they congruent? Are they the same size? But what you're really trying to say is, am I matching up by even though I'm acting out and doing the things, it's probably more robotic versus the what I call resonance,
Yeah,
things that are in tune. You feel like,
exactly.
"This is my strength, my energy level's up, this is exciting," and when there's a level of incongruence, you're more of the robot. You're more of the,
That's
"I'm
right.
just
We
the bot."
numb. We numb
Mm,
when there's incongruence, right? Where we don't wanna feel it. It feels icky. We tighten, right? We often constrict and, like, our body responds in that way. Exactly what you're saying is congruence when we're in contact with a strength, right? And we're able to actually live into a strength. It's more likely that we're free flowing, like, our blood can actually move through our body, our breath can move through our body. We feel the tingly energy of, like, "Oh, yeah," like, and a moving towards.
yes.
Right? Incongruence is like, I wanna move away, right? There's something
Mm,
about that that I don't wanna come into contact with, that I'm not loving, that I just am not wanting to go there, and, none of it's good or bad. This is not like a judgment thing. This is more of just a data piece, right? And it's the advice is pay attention to the embodied data that you have because that does not lie. The
yep.
embodiment data is the truth teller. So if you can drop your attention from your headspace into your body when you're moving into something that you don't want to be moving into, compared to when you're moving into something that you want to move towards, you will be blown away by the data that's available to you that you probably weren't paying attention to before.
Love that. Thank you for sharing that. Y'all, if you are not inspired by this conversation with Michelle, are you listening? This is so good.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I think that see that there's the embodiment,
There's
but,
the embodiment.
but truthfully, thank you so much for being on the pod. I even though we worked together for years, you don't have conversations like this, and
I
so being
know,
able to
right?
hear your passion, it's not a associated with a project, but just who you are, the journey that you've been on, how you've unlocked extraordinary in yourself, and now as your job enabling others to unlock extraordinary in their lives. And I just absolutely love that. So, thank you for sharing that advice. We've come to the point where we do the lightning round, and we're going to ask you some questions you weren't prepared for.
I'm
But
not.
what
This
I
is improv.
all right, here we go. Let's go do this. So, being a mother and having a family, sometimes, like when I think back to my mom, there are always these treats or things that she put together. It could have been bought from the store, it could have been something she made herself. What is that thing that you make and they're like, "Oh man, nobody does it like my mom." What is it that you make for your family that they say that? Or what do you buy? And they're like, "Oh, she knew."
I make them protein balls. They love them.
Really? Like what is that? What's that made out
It's
of?
a mix of seeds, peanut butter, chocolate chips, syrup, or honey,
Okay.
flax. Like I sneak all these healthy ingredients in there, but they love that there's chocolate chips. And my kids don't get to eat a lot of sweets. So the fact that there's chocolate chips, they're like, these are the best. They will eat those all day long for like a good protein snack, especially like before sports. It's been a
Yeah.
game changer for me. When to keep them from getting hangry.
Yeah, no, I love that. That is awesome. Okay, second question. You and I both know you love to work out. You love exercising. What is the music playlist you listen to when you work out? Like, what's your go-to thing?
Oh gosh. With the Unfiltered, the first band that comes to mind is CNC Music Factory.
I did
It's
not
like a
see that
total
coming.
throwback.
Oh,
Like Vanilla Ice, CNC Music Factory, like those old
yeah,
school songs that have like a fun beat, or like a little
yeah,
Aerosmith or, any Metallica, like any one of those old, I don't know, call it 80s-ish, whatever,
yeah.
bands, like those fun oh, Belle Biv DeVoe, like those some of
Oh
those
my
fun
God, look at
throwbacks
you.
are when they play those playlists, I am just like, I can't help but sing. Sing to myself, not sing to others, on the treadmill, it's like, I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, this is such a throwback."
Yeah, yeah, I love again, we worked together for years, had 0 clue that was in the repertoire, so now I know, bring out
Oh my
the
gosh, so
late
funny.
'80s, early '90s, hip hop,
Hip hop,
rock.
yeah,
Yeah. Great.
totally. And I'm,
Okay,
like, learning all
last
the lyrics that I had totally wrong, because we didn't have access to all of that back
yes.
then. I'm like, "Oh, that's what they were saying." Like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay."
That's so fu I know, I do that same thing where there you have now on if you have Apple Music, it shows you all
Right,
the lyrics, and you can
yeah.
sing to it like a karaoke song. I'm
Oh, and
like,
I
"Man,
actually
I
had to
didn't know
sing them
these
the
were the
right words.
lyrics." Yes, exactly. Last question. Now, you're the home you live in is a beautiful home, and you've been blessed with an incredible husband that has renovated it. And, you showed me
Yeah.
before and after, gorgeous. And so the question is, what's the next renovation that you want, but you haven't asked your husband yet because you're like, I gotta find the right time to do it. But what's the next one?
Such a legitimate question. Um, the one so we painted the fireplaces, they were like a red brick, and I made him spend like 2 weekends with me, and we painted them white, and I hate them white. So, the next renovation is repainting the fireplaces. Um, I just need to decide on the color, which is a little bit
Oof.
of a problem, but yeah, that's the one, and he's just like, don't even ask me," and I'm like, "Okay, can I, like, just hire someone to do it?" Yeah, he's like, "No,"
Oof.
he's like, "No, we're not yet. Don't ask me yet." I'm like, "Okay, I'll wait."
Yeah. That's awesome. Oh, that's not awesome for your husband because I can only imagine he's
I
slugging
know.
away. I hate it. I hate that. Oh, okay. Well, Michelle, thank you. It's been an absolute joy together on the pod. So many things that you shared. If someone wants to get in touch with you and they're like, "Well, Michelle is putting down, I'm trying to pick up," how do they contact you?
They can reach out on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to give you my number and my email. I mean, I work through referral, and that's how I worked for the last 14 years. So I don't have like a big online presence, but would be more than happy to connect with anyone and have like a consult call if anyone has interest in learning more about my domain, what I do. Yeah, definitely, please reach out. Would love it.
Excellent. Michelle, thank you so much. Extraordinaires, you heard someone extremely extraordinary, unlocking it in so many
Mm.
people. Get in touch with her. She's incredible. All right,
Thanks for
y'all.
having
Thanks
me.
so much. Thank you, Michelle. Talk soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
Eugene.